Hello and greetings on this March 31st, 2023, Transgender Day of Visibility. My name is Robin McCutcheon. I'm speaking to you from my home office in the Greater Downtown Burlington metro area. And I don't mean Burlington, Vermont. I mean Burlington, Maine. That's a village, really. It is a town. Population perhaps 200, about 45 miles to the north and a bit to the east of Bangor, near the Canadian border with New Brunswick. As you might guess from this location, I am retired. My office is my home office, actually here in my garage, along with a bicycle that is sitting on the trainer, which is where I tend to ride it in the winters since I don't need to bike commute anymore. For those who know my story, I am retired from the U.S. Department of State Foreign Service. That's a long way of saying I was a diplomat. Not anyone you ever would have heard of. I was mid-level. At the time of my retirement, at the end of 2019, I was FS02. We have our own scale in the Foreign Service. That's the rough equivalent to the military rank of being a lieutenant colonel. So, how many lieutenant colonels do you know? Well, I'm in about that category. The difference being, of course, that the military is orders of magnitude larger than the Department of State Foreign Service. Someone in Washington could give you the current numbers, but the numbers I always quoted when people would ask me when I was still active was that we had somewhere between, I think, on the order of 7,000 Foreign Service officer generalists around the world. I don't know what the numbers are for the military, but I don't think you have to think too hard to realize how much smaller the Foreign Service is. We are commissioned. I'm a commissioned officer in the Foreign Service, or was. Now I'm commissioned retiree. We do have mandatory retirement for age still. Believe it or not, it's one of the few occupations left in the United States, in particular in the U.S. government, where your retirement is mandatory. The month one turns 65, it's bye, and off you go. For me, that was the end of August 2019, and I headed off on the bicycle from Washington, D.C. up to here, and I've really never gotten off the bike. It's my main activity in retirement, or one of them, has been bike packing. Summer of 2020, the COVID summer, I rode from here in Maine out to the Pacific Ocean, actually Puget Sound, Anacortes, Washington, 3-month trip. 2021, I'm getting my years mixed up. I did another transcontinental trip. It was on the route we call the Trans Am from Virginia out to Oregon. And last year, to do something entirely different, I flew with the bike up to the Arctic Ocean in Dead Horse, Alaska. Biked from there down the Dalton Highway to Fairbanks, and then made my way on the Alcan and Taylor highways and Top of the World Highway into Yukon Territory, Canada. And then worked my way slowly down from there through Yukon, Whitehorse, Watson Lake, and then down through British Columbia, over at Alberta, Jasper, and down through down the Icefields Parkway, Jasper National Park, and back into Montana. For those of you who followed my story, I am the first Foreign Service officer to have transitioned while overseas at post. That was in Romania back in 2010, 2011. And after that, I was president of GLIFA. GLIFA is our LGBT organization for the Foreign Service. I was president in 2013, 2014. That was the year we in GLIFA actually spearheaded the movement, the action which gained health benefits, federal health care benefits for federal employees who are transgender. Up until that time, there had been the gender, what we call the transgender exclusion, that prohibited coverage of anything related to our needs as transgender men and women. We worked with other organizations, but it was actually we in GLIFA who we had the breakthrough, primarily because we were able to bring the heavy hitters into action. Deputy Secretary of State for Management, Pat Kennedy in particular. So that was perhaps my primary contribution in the United States. I am not that well known here as an activist. I'm actually better known in transgender circles in Romania, where I transitioned, and also in Kazakhstan and more generally throughout Central Asia. I'm a Russian language speaker. Я русскоязычная, хотя я говорю на русском до сих пор хорошим, порядочным, приличным американским акцентом. I speak Russian fluently, but with a good American accent, because I learned it back in the days when there was no one to speak it with, so I have my American accent, but not a Maine accent yet. So I have close ties with people in the community in Kazakhstan in particular. There are people there in my life I consider part of my family, to the point that I was back there last year and do intend to be back again later this year. I'll be splitting my time between the United States and there. Why haven't I blogged much lately? Well, I have blogged on my alternate blog, Alice in and Out of State. That's been all about my bicycle trips. I'll put a note below this video about that. My reason for not blogging here in what had been my primary blog, Transgender in and Out of State, is I put all my eggs in one basket. I wrote a memoir. Rewritten it 3 times, professional editor, peer reviews, you name it. It has been through so many rewrites. I might have owned the project when I started. It owns me now. The latest on that is it has been accepted by the Association for Diplomatic Security and Training. That was early this year. And they're trying to find a publisher for it. Who knows? I've been working on this for over 3 years, to the exclusion of almost all other writing projects. I do write something I call my weekly missive. I'm one of those who kind of dropped out of Facebook, 2016 election and some other issues. I do send out what I call my weekly missive by email. It's an email distribution. I call it the missive from the Greater Downtown Burlington metro area, the GDBMA. If you would like to be on that, or on the missives that I send when I'm on the bike trips, I will give some information on that as well here in my little short blog post. But primarily today on Transgender Day of Visibility, as we have all of these laws being adopted, in particular in our southern states in the United States, that are very anti-trans, very anti-family, and very much aimed against transgender youth and transgender people in general. I considered it important that even as a retiree, and retirees, we can be forgotten. We generally are. There is ageism in the U.S. But I did need to speak out today. And to the trans community in the United States, in particular to younger people, if you have any interest in traveling the world, if you have an interest in foreign languages, living in foreign cultures, and promoting U.S. policy around the world, take the Foreign Service Officer test. I might have been a first for the U.S. Department of State, but I'm not the last. We have several other trans Foreign Service officers who have been serving around the world. We need more. I look forward to the day when we have our first transgender officer who reaches the rank of ambassador. Maybe that could be you. Think about it. There has been such a push for transgender Americans to get into the military. Well, I posit to you that the Foreign Service is just as important. It's the way of keeping the peace. It's a way of keeping the world order, not through bullets, but through quiet words. Which is why, for the most part, you don't hear about us. If we do our jobs right, you shouldn't hear about us. So consider that. Foreign Service Officer Test. Just do a Google search on it. There's a test given, I don't know how many times a year right now. It's free to take. Just take it. Why not? Go off and live your life. You might get a letter in the mail that'll surprise you 6 weeks later saying, hey, we're interested in you, and we'll continue you on the process. And what can you do in the Foreign Service? Well, yeah, at my level, you're basically an implementer. I was high enough up that I ran a department. My final posting overseas I was the regional representative to Central Asia for environment, science, technology, and health. This was still during the Obama years, so what were my issues? Paris Agreement on climate change, global health security. But since I covered health issues, I also made sure I covered LGBT health issues. My greatest award for my years in the Foreign Service, this isn't to show off, but just to give you an idea, and it's not going to show up here too well. This is a Superior Honor Award that I received for my time in Kazakhstan. Superior Honor Award, that's one of the highest you get as an officer. And the citation reads, for exceptional dedication and creativity in advancing LGBT rights in Kazakhstan and making this an integral part of the work of the mission. All of the handwriting on here, these are people who are members of the LGBT community in Kazakhstan. I asked them all to write on it. Some of them, as I say, they're my extended family to this day. That is how you, as a transgender Foreign Service officer, can contribute on your own just by being there and being open to new friendships. Open your door to the community, invite them in. Do what my friend Mindy Michael says, arrange a lasagna revolution. Cook a lasagna, or just order pizza. Once a month, have people over and just let them talk. They might surprise you. They might found an organization. In Romania, some of my trans friends there have told me, they say, if it hadn't been for you, Robin, we wouldn't be here. That's them saying that. Because I happened to be there at the right moment, at a time when they needed someone like me to set an example. I've gone on over long. If anyone would like a draft of my memoir and the whole story, I'll just email it to you, if you wish. If we don't find a publisher, I guess it's time for Amazon and self-publishing. You would think in this day and age of all of the attention to the anti-trans laws, there'd be some interest in a positive story. Oh well. On this I end. I wish you all well on this Transgender Day of Visibility. Be out there if you are in a place where it is safe to do so and when you want to do so. But for the most part, most of all, let the people in your life know who you are. Because it's through them knowing you that life becomes better for all of us. Excuse the poor quality of this video. It's being taken just with my webcam. You have the full view of my office here in the Greater Downtown Metro Burlington area, Maine. Be well, go forth, be visible. Bye. Пока, as we would say in Russian.